Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Moon Grow. I am Luna Whitcomb at Luna All Day. Today we have Josh Hedberg, head of sales at BioAg. We're going to talk about his products and how they integrate into living soil systems, biostimulants in general. Josh is a very knowledgeable individual. I've had some good conversations with him. Josh, how are you doing? I hear you're at MJ BizCon.
Oh yes, in Las Vegas today. Yeah, it's been a hell of a show. But yeah, having a good time. Actually going to a Connect event here in about just after this show, and going to go meet up with some more people. It should be fun.
Cool.
It's at Mike Tyson's old mansion that's now an Airbnb.
That's cool. Are the tigers there?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they call it the Tiger
really?
Mansion. I thought we were going to Siegfried and Roy's, but it turns out it's Tyson's. So I'm like, hey.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Should be fun.
Yeah. So I know that BioAg has a whole bunch of new products on the line, and you gave me some of them, and I've been trying them, and I've seen some really cool results. The Calmino, and I got some of the Cytoplus, which I know isn't new, and then the liquid full humics and stuff. Why don't you tell me a little bit about like what's new with BioAg and what brings to the table for living soil?
Right on. Well, what we've done is we came out with some new silica supplements and amino acids that help with specific issues that we were running into in the ag market. Specifically, bug and mold and heat resistance. Every farmer on the planet is dealing with that right now. And it's hard to find a good available source that you can use that won't interfere with your fertilizer because of high pHs or, other issues with incorporating silica into, particularly living soil systems. You don't just want to water on potassium silica with an extreme pH on the living soil. That would be incredibly detrimental. But you can still get benefits from using silica in those systems. You just got to apply them at the right times. One of the things when I was going through the catalog years ago of ag products that we didn't have labels for was a product called Ion 14. And it was a dry powder that was used for large-scale desalinization of cornfields to reduce salt. It's the beginning of regenerative agriculture. So you start off with that to reduce the mineral salts and then bring in more compost and living soil and cover crops, build your nitrogen and micronutrients, loosen your soil, and then you can start again once your EC has gotten into a relatively good point. But when I'm looking at the, reading about this product and I'm like, oh, what are the ingredients? Humic acid, monosilicic acid. And I'm like, yeah. That sounds pretty good. They sell that stuff for a ridiculous amount of money at the hydro store. And then after crunching some numbers, I figured we could make a liquid gallon out of that and retail it for right around $60. So that's a fantastic combination. I don't like to sell one thing at a time. I'd rather sell a bottle with humic and silica or micronutrients and seaweed than just one thing. They work together symbiotically for a far better effect. But we actually got approached by a company in Germany that helped develop the product that I gave you called BioSupersil. And it's unique in that it's the first nanostructured fertilizer in North America, a true nanostructured fertilizer. And what that means is that they broke down a amorphous silica to the point where it's almost like a fog or a mist, and they reconstituted it inside of a liquid. And the liquid that it worked best with was full power. And the reason behind that is that full power, unlike 99% of the fulvic acids on the market, are not made with hydroxides. We make ours in a cold microbial process, and that makes it much more bioavailable and makes it so you can mix it with far more things because it doesn't have those extreme pHs, and it wasn't extracted chemically. That is a very different process and gives you a very different product at the end than using a cold microbial process. I think the key to that is that the reason why we manufacture all of our products in Oregon is that Oregon is one of the few places we can collect enough rainwater to manufacture our products all year long.
So you're using rainwater?
Yes, we collect and use rainwater for all of the liquid products produced at BioAg.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dr. Bob Faust developed these products while he was living in Hawaii, and that was his only source of water. And so that's what he had to do when he was working on this, back in, the 70s. And when he moved to Willamette Valley to apply his trade, he tried making it out of the groundwater. Didn't work. And he's like, oh, okay, I got to go back to the rainwater. And that's since then he's been able to develop some amazing products out of that. He's recently retired and kind of passed the torch over to me and my buddy Vic and Bill, and now we're keeping all in those same lines. Regenerative organic agriculture.
That's great.
Vic, he when he purchased the company, his family is connected with a group that produces the largest amino acid producer in the world out of India, and they produce amino acids derived from soybean. And in India, they don't allow GMO soybean seeds into the country, so that's not even a thing. And in India, they don't have large scale ag farming. It's all small farms that conglomerate together to sell a crop. So it's all small farms that come together to grow this for them. So they provide them with amino acid fertilizers to grow their amino acids. So it's amino acids to grow amino acids, producing a far cleaner product than any of the other amino acids on the market. Lower in nitrates, lower in heavy metals. They're almost non-existent in our base amino acid blend. There is little to no unregisterable heavy metals in there, and that's very rare. Most of the dirty secret about amino acids in our industry is they come out of China, they're full of heavy metals, and they're produced with slave labor. That's a fact. Sorry, but that's the difference between paying $120 for a 50-pound bag of amino acids and paying closer to that $200 mark.
So BioAg's amino acids, they come from India, non-GMO, and from small-scale farmers.
Yes, ma'am. In the process that they make them, they're enzymatically digested. So there's two different ways you can make amino acids, just like you can make humic and fulvic acids. You can use a chemical process, which produces a more stable product. So you can stick it in a bottle and it's going to sit on the shelf much better, which is what most people do. What we do, what these people do, and what we prefer is a enzymatic process that is more organic. It's not you have more plant fatty acids and other stuff compounds in there, but because they spray dry it, which is it's really this cool process with these giant buildings that kind of look like Japanese pagodas, where it steps up and it gets there at the bottom, and this giant machine sprays it as a liquid up in the air, and it dries as it floats down to the bottom. Then they sweep up the powder, and that is your amino acids.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So they're using like a proteolytic enzyme, some kind of protease that they add to.
It steps a little bit more out of my knowledge, but I think so. Yes, it's I believe some sort of a protein enzyme that they're using to extract it, and then they can add organic micronutrients in with that in the process. And when they do that and they add it in before it's extracted, that breaks it down with the amino acids and makes it almost instantly bioavailable. So
since based on like the quality and like how it was grown, it makes more sense for you to dry the product through the process that you're talking about, then introduce it to a liquid and put it on the shelf, because it's not going to be as stable.
Yes, I can make a liquid out of it, but there's a lot more that goes into stabilizing it on the shelf. There's certain combinations that don't work well for it sitting on a shelf with other products in it. So it took us a little while to figure out the blend, which was much more complicated. Basically, it's the difference between, okay, this is the easy way and it's a quarter of a mile walk, or it's the hard way and you got to walk 10 miles. We walked 10 miles and did it the hard way. And because of that, we were able to take our amino acids, which is a 1400, and we were able to fortify that with different micronutrients. So we've got a 500 boron supplement called Boramino. And we've got a calcium supplement that I gave you called Calmino. And each one of these supplements is 10% whatever micronutrients is in it. So if it's a molybdenum or copper or calcium, it's 10%. And then depending on how much they, again, the blend that they used will dictate how much nitrogen is in there. So like the Calmino, if I remember right, I believe it's a 700. But this nitrogen isn't like normal nitrogen that you use. It is because it's blended with the amino acids, it's far harder to overuse, and it's far harder to hurt your plants with. We didn't get to toxicity with these products until we got to almost 50-50 product to water. You can water with it too often. If you water with it 3 times a day for 10 days in a row at full strength, you don't want to do that. You want to water with it at a quarter of a, if you're watering like that, quarter strength. The more you use, the less you use it. But the great thing about good quality biostimulants, when you need the most, you use the least. And when you need the least, you use the most. So when you're growing small cuttings and seedlings, you're using those products at full strength to build roots, build stalks, and grow a strong plant. But once you get into a flowering situation or a plant that's taller than 2 feet, you're usually most of the time using these products as a biocatalyst to enhance the uptake of the fertilizer that's in your living soil, feed the microbes, and get them to work for you to get your plant to grow as healthy as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. So you were saying that you can use this amino acid product, this CalAmino product, to help with root development, like in rooting. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. When you use amino acids early in flowering, it'll actually help stimulate the uptake of fertilizer, and it will stimulate root growth. Especially when you combine it with other products. When you combine different biostimulants in a blend, they have different names for it. I've heard it referred to as a synergetic stack or a biosynthetic stimulant. But it's a combination of different additives that come at the same problem from different sides. So you're using humic acids to help uptake micronutrients, condition the soil, make everything stick together better, give you better tilth. And then you've got your fulvic acid, which is the more complex form of that, and that's helping you uptake your fertilizer. And at the same time, it's giving you bigger stalks and longer furrier roots. And if you build those faster at an earlier age, you can get much faster root growth and a much larger yield potential out of your plants naturally. So instead of having when you go into that 1 gallon pot, instead of having a little twig coming out of the soil, you've got something the size of your pinky. Once you get into that 5 gallon bucket, you've got a thumb. Once you get into that 15, you're talking, big size stalks, big roots equal big fruits and big flowers.
Love it. I'm going to try that. So I actually have to make some clones later tonight. I'm going to add some of that CalAmino.
Amino acids are used in a lot of root stimulators. Like I won't say the name of it, but there's a very popular root stimulator out there that has been introduced to the market. It's organic. And it comes in one of those metal bottles. It's real fancy, and it's a 100 protein hydroslate, and it's a root stimulator, and it works fantastic. And if you take 1.5 pounds of our nitroamino and mix that with 1 gallon of water, and then pH balance that to about 8.5, you just made a gallon of it. They retail this product for $90 for 250 mils.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's the difference between a product that's marketed to cannabis and a product that's marketed to agriculture. Right. They use our products to make these overpriced products that are marketed to the cannabis community. And frankly, those days are done. They're very limited. Your days are numbered selling snake oil to cannabis farmers. They're too smart for that now. There's too many alternatives, and people are learning that they've been fooled for many, many years. If you're paying, $150 or even, $60 for a bottle of guano tea, you're paying a tax there, man. I mean, if you're growing at home, okay, I get it. Do the fanciest way you go. But if you've got a business and you're trying to put food on the table for a family, that does not add up. So you got to use what is going to work best. And there's so many times read the back of that ingredients. Go to the Department of Ag in your state and read the heavy metal content on everything in your garden. Do your due diligence. The only one that's going to do it is you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I mean,
how many products are exactly the same thing, just in different combinations. You have to put the ingredients on the back. And if it's a company that's adding something that's not on the back, do you want to use that? I don't want to work with a company that's not going to say everything that's in their stuff. Oh, we put something special in here we can't tell you about. Well, then I ain't using that. You need to tell me about it. I need to know what that is.
I've seen a lot of that too. Yeah, there's some people in the industry that are just taking powdered amendments and then repackaging them and upping the price 10, 20 times and then just redistributing it. It's criminal.
Here, I'll call out a guy right now. Look at Athena's, a very popular commercial line. They sell 2 products that, one of them is a potassium silica and the other one is a seaweed, and they retail for somewhere around $90 a liter or somewhere around $250 a gallon. You can get that for you can get a thing of seaweed for $25 a gallon. That's very, very similar. You can get a gallon of potassium silica. You can make that for about $10. You can buy one for about $26. Spending that kind of money is foolish, and it's being, promoted to cannabis people like that. It's the only choice. But the big problem that, and the big advantage that I see from using a living soil system or organics, even liquid organics, over a salt-fed system particularly for cannabis growth, is the shelf life and the extended quality that you get out of your cannabis. I challenge anyone here: grow the same plant in your garden, grow one with chemicals and grow one with organic fertilizer. Take that flower, dry it and cure it the exact same way, put it in a jar or put it in a vacuum packaged thing and seal it, and just watch it for half a year. Watch it for 3 months. See which one turns brown first. See which one tastes good after 3 months. I guarantee you it's going to be the organic one every time. And if you're selling 100 pounds at a time to a distributor and it's going bad in 4 months, guess what? They're not buying it next time. So this is one of those things where you're going to get along with the program, or you're going to get rolled right over by this industry. Because everyone thinks it's gotten bad now. They don't know what is coming. As soon as federal legalization happens, as soon as we can cross borders, that means that all those ag guys that have been getting bank loans for the last 100 years that run the ag industry in our country, they're going to see this and they're going to be able to jump into that market, and they're going to be able to learn a lot faster than any of the cannabis guys are going to be able to scale to their size. Just because it's a lot easier to learn how to grow pot than it is to get someone to invest several $1 million into your pot farm.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's logistics and scales that kill cannabis farms.
Discouraging. It's a little discouraging for small farmers like me. But
but you see, but that's where you're going to thrive. It's the craft. The quality. Those guys. There's always a Saturday market in every town. There's always that guy growing the best vegetables, way better than any you can get at any supermarket. That's what's going to keep the little guy going. And a person like you, once interstate sales can happen, you can go to a guy who's got a coffee shop in Holland or a guy who's got a coffee shop in Vegas. And you can say, okay, I've got this strain that no one else has. You buy it at $3,000 a pound. I sell you 10 pounds a month. Here we go. You're the only one that has it on the planet. Charge whatever you want. Charge the wrappers $500 a pound or $500 an ounce if they want to pay it. Sell it to them. They're willing to pay it.
Right. Yeah, and living soil brings so many diversity of compounds and microorganisms and stuff that it creates a very unique product that allows us to compete with these people who are making very cookie cutter, procedures to grow their cannabis with.
And the waste, just think about the waste of the rock wool that's going into the all of the trash dumps all across our country right now. You figure one 4x8 tray can take anywhere from 13 to 25 6x6 rock wool cubes. Those do not biodegrade. Those will not burn until you get them past 3,000 degrees. That's melted spun rock.
Right.
So those are all going into the dump. They're not recycling that crap. I go outside of any of these major facilities and you see dumpsters and dumpsters full of this shit. Whereas with organic living soil, you can reuse that indefinitely. Buy your soil once, reuse it again and again and again.
And it's cheaper,
Waste is offensive.
Yeah. And those bottled products, like you were saying, are just so expensive that, it's no longer going to be sustainable.
Exactly. Everything that we sell at BioAg, here's a great example. We're developing a new product for the hazelnut industry. And they needed, something that covered all bases. That's going to help stimulate root growth. That's going to help them with heat and drought resistance. It's going to stimulate the microbiomes of their soil. But they've got a very, very tight budget. They can only afford, about $300 to $250 per acre for everything. So that means they got to pay for their fertilizer and their biostimulants with that money. And that's it. And that's all that they can spend. So we've got to be able to fit that market. And they got to be able to do that for like 2,000, 3,000, 50,000 acres. So that's where the numbers they really they'll make your head spin really, really quick. But what we did is we developed a product that has acid, fulvic acid, an organic micronutrient pack, and seaweed. And the results on that have been amazing. But we were able to get that to those farmers for around $20 a gallon. And that's not and we made, not a terrible amount of profit at that, but we made profit on that, and that's not undoable. If you were to take that product and introduce it into the cannabis world, the average price on that from most companies would be close to $300 to $500 a gallon. We're going to introduce it next year for less than 60, between 60 and 80, depending on, again, what's the big thing that costs? Labeling and bottles. That's really the hardest part with manufacturing is what the hell am I going to put it in and how much is that thing going to cost me?
So you were talking about, these products that have fulvic acid in them. Does that mean that you wouldn't need to use a product like Full Power or Full Humics in addition to them? Or would there be benefit?
Well, the cool thing about using products that have fulvic acid in it is that with products that have fulvic acid in it, you'll never have enough in there to get the full effect from it, but you can stack them. So we sell like 3 or 4 different products that have fulvic acid in them. So if you're using, let's say, Full Humics, which is 30% fulvic acid, and you add Full Power to that, and you add, let's say, the BioSupersil to that, instead of using 30 mils of the Full Power, 30 mils of the Full Humics and 20 mils of the BioSupersil, you're going to use like 5 mils of the BioSupersil. What would be? It'd be 7 mils of the Full Humics, and the rest would be Full Power. So you're using less of everything to get to the same place, and stacked together, you still are using Full Power at full strength. But both of those other products, especially the Full Humics, is a little bit less than Full Power. But it depends on the effect that you're going for and what stage of growth you're in. I am of the opinion that if you're in early veg, that's where I use a lot of humic acid and less fulvic. But I'm still using them both together. But as the further I get into veg, the more that ratio switches from less humic acid and more fulvic acid. Because I'm wanting more macronutrient uptake than less soil conditioning. And humic acid takes a little while to get that effect. So you want to start early and use it early on your soil. But as far as getting, long-term beds that have been soil that's been there for a while, humic acid is a huge benefit, particularly with silica at reducing the salt and keeping the soil and the microbes happy. The humic acid, it's going to be food for the microbes, where the fulvic acid is going to help wake them up. We sell a lot of these products to people that manufacture organic bacterias and fungi for our industry. And that's what they use them for. They use them to either wake them up from a dormant state when they've been kept in a powder form, or to feed them in a long term. It just depends on how you're looking, what type of product you're trying to build, or it's bacteria-based or fungi-based, whether it's liquid or a powder. Most liquids are bacteria-based. There's very few quality liquid mycorrhizae, in my opinion. In fact, it kind of steps a little bit out of my realm of knowledge, because I'm no microbiologist, but from what I understand, 90% of liquid mycorrhizae is all shenanigans. Mycorrhizae drowns in water after anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. There is a process where it can be encapsulated and it can stay in there and have a longer life. But, again, that steps out of my knowledge, and I don't know how cost effective that is to put a product like that on the market. But I do know when I owned the indoor garden center in Salem, Oregon, the Department of Ag came in one day and bought everything in my store that had mycorrhizae in it. And they bought, I think we were selling like 3 or 4 different liquids at the time. Botanicare had one, Advanced Nutrients had one, what was it? Great White had one. There were all these different liquid mycorrhizas. They tested them all, and none of them had living mycorrhizae in them. They all had tons of beneficial bacteria. And don't get me wrong, those products were great. They will function, but they didn't have what they said they had. They didn't have the mycorrhizae. You were getting it through bacillus and different bacteria, which is great, but those are a lot cheaper than mycorrhizae.
Yeah, that's something that I talk about pretty often, actually, is how, fungi doesn't really want to exist in water, liquid, and so many people talk about like fungal dominated teas, or some kind of solutions that have a lot of fungi in them. Fungi doesn't want to perpetuate or propagate inside of water. What you're doing is you're dispersing spores, right? And you're not culturing fungi when using these things.
Yeah, if you're going to brew a tea for fungi and stimulating fungi, that's a short tea. You're talking, like 2 to 12 hours tops. After that, now you're bacteria. I've talked with Mark at Green Grow. I'm learning a ton from him about this. He's a very, very smart when it comes to the microbiology. That's one of the things that he's been showing me is, you just get so much more out of a 12-hour or 6-hour tea than you do out of a 24 or 36-hour tea, unless you've got some of those really gnarly amendments, like a lot of crab or things that need to be broken down. But then you're not going for fungi, you're going for more of a, whatever those have to offer, whether it's chitin or there's
Nutrients,
an NPK value. Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Yeah, I try to keep my biological composties, pretty short, usually between 24 hours, like 24 and 36 hours, as long as
people don't talk about this, but those teas can be absolutely dangerous. I guarantee you 100% that after 36 hours, you've got E. coli in there and probably a bunch of other stuff. You can absolutely make yourself incredibly sick by not handling that stuff with incredible care. Especially if you're talking guano. I've talked to many people over the years that have been, sloppy with their compost teas, and they've made themselves and people that work in their garden very sick. So
100%.
that's something you got to be very, very careful with, especially when handling organic dry amendments. You need to wear those gloves. You need to wear that mask. Just because it's organic doesn't mean it's safe. A prime example of that are boron supplements. They're commonly used in Oregon because our soil naturally is short on boron. Where in California, they actually have more than they need coming through their water. But most farmers that are growing in the ground in Oregon have to supplement boron somewhere in their cycle. But boron is is one of the few minerals that's transdermal. So whether you're using it from borax or you're using Solubor or our amino product, that can go right through your skin. And if you get exposed to too much of it, you're gonna have a problem. So you got to respect the nutrients and respect what you're doing and respect yourself by handling it with very much care. If you're not wearing gloves and a mask when you're mixing fertilizers and you're handling this stuff, you are doing it wrong.
Nature can fight back. Definitely can.
Absolutely. There is no biological free ride, and there's always a price to be paid.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the time I feel like people think that just because it's organic or natural that it's safer. And plants and fungi will kill you very quickly.
Exactly. Just because it's if it even stuff, mild stuff like neem oil, you do not want to breathe that in. You do not want to get that on your skin. Especially if it was designed to kill bugs. If it's supposed to hurt bugs, it's not good for you. I don't care what it is. Even these are really cool new because they've got some amazing products out there. Stuff that's based on sugar and bacteria and fungi. The Marone products are some of my favorites. Because they're all organic or they're based off of like a dead fungus or different things like that, and they're amazing. That's the future of those products. So, get rid of the petrochemical, go with the natural stuff. But that doesn't mean you don't need to be careful when you're using that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and even just like Bacillus subtilis and Rhodosudomonas species, stuff like that. They're very dangerous. They can definitely make you super, super sick. And we play with them all the time.
Absolutely. But the great thing about gardening organically is, especially with living soil, you don't necessarily have to buy all of these different bugs in a jug to get those effects. You can get a fantastic result just by using compost, molasses, and a couple of humate substance products. You don't have to go and buy every $300 bottle of a bacillus tincture that's on the market to get a killer living soil. In fact, a lot of the time you get there a lot simpler just by using basic techniques that have worked for hundreds of years. We're not doing anything new. We're going back to what was.
Hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, we're just doing it. I see it a lot more in the ag world than in the cannabis world now, but they're catching up. But the ag world's been doing it longer. So we'll talk to a guy. They'll come to BioAg. It'll be the grandson. He'll be like, okay, dad's been growing. The family's been growing corn for 3 generations. Granddad used to get 130 bushels per acre. I'm down to 80. Dad's been killing the soil with chemicals for 60 years. How do I get back to granddad? And then we start breaking it down, reduce the salts, get the soil living again, switch from using mineral salt intake to organic inputs, start doing cover crops and crop rotations. Those are absolutely imperative, especially if you're planning on not tilling your garden. And once you get on that bike and you start pedaling, you realize how much easier it is than trying to balance the petrochemical thing. Half of the nitrogen to 40% of the nitrogen that's sprayed on those cornfields evaporates into the air and is one of the things that's causing global warming in the worst. To say that it was done as some sort of evil conspiracy would be just an out lie. The reason why we have these petrochemicals is they were afraid they didn't know how to feed the world after World War II. But now we know that after using these products for 60 years in extreme amounts all across the planet, that any place that uses petrochemical fertilizers on a large scale, the cancer rates jump off the roof. Doesn't matter where it is. Look at where it starts. Let's watch the cancer rates go off the charts. The best way to fix that is by fixing the soil. You want to get rid of carbon in the air. You want to reduce global warming. Put it back in the dirt. Do that through organic farming. And that's what we're trying to do. And, I love that cannabis farmers are much more early adapters to these techniques than the ag farmer guys. I don't have to explain what neem oil or what the benefits of compost teas when I'm talking at a cannabis conference. But when I go to an ag conference, they don't even know what that stuff is.
Yeah. I've been on some hemp farms where they're all, traditional agriculture. And a lot of the things that I would talk to them about was they just had never heard of it before. They thought I was crazy.
Exactly. How much easier it is. I was a hydro guy for years, and I helped a lot of people because of my store. They wanted to learn organic soil. So I couldn't just tell them, no, I prefer hydro. I'm not going to sell you that. I was like, okay, let's learn this together. So, we started carrying all the down to earth organic amendments, and, we'd carry earth juice for years. I turned a lot of people onto organic soil just by selling them the old rainbow mix, grow and bloom. It's like, here's your grow, here's your bloom, here's some seaweed, go at it. That's a great old mix that works great. But it just depends on how you want to get there. Whether you're using a pre-mixed organic soil that's made by one of these boutique manufacturers like a Buildup soil or Organic Matter soil or what's his name, Soil King. Any one of those will work great. Just pick one and use it. And then go from there. But keep at it. Try different things. There's a lot of different ways of getting to the same place. It's just figuring out what works best for you and the way you like to do things. And what you've got available to you. What you can get local, what you can get fresh is what's going to work best. We're in the Pacific Northwest, so we're kind of spoiled. We got everything. We got, cows, we got ocean amendments, we got, mines where we can get humate. We got lots of different livestock where we can get byproducts from them. That's really the best way to keep a garden in a completely closed loop is you need to have animals. You need to have pigs, you need to have cows, you need to have chickens, you need to have something to eat, something produces, a byproduct. And once you really jump on that bike and really keep your organic thing going without having little to no inputs. We work with one of my favorite farmers in the world is German Tom. He does about 100,000 acres of no-till in Germany. And
Nice.
He only buys 4 products for his entire farm: molasses, full power, ion 14, and full humics, or I'm sorry, TM7, our micronutrient pack. That's it for 100,000 acres. Everything else comes from the pigs. I'll send you later on after the show. I'll send you a bunch of pictures of his farm. They're amazing.
That's so cool. What is he growing?
Everything. Mostly corn, alfalfa. He does. He rotates with about a half a dozen different cover crops. Triticales and different nitrogen accumulators for his soil. But when you look at his soil, when you look at it at eye level and get right against the ground, every 6 to 10 inches, you see a mushroom. And you see these all over the place, and you see dead stuff everywhere. Oh, those are the corn stalks from the crop before. Oh, that's the dead bottoms of the alfalfa. That stuff gets left there to rot. That's what it should do. That's feeding everything. You want to see mold and fungus and rot on the bottom of your soil. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
And then those mushrooms get collected and those get fed to the pigs. And here's the other trick too. He's using my stuff in his compost teas, but he's also feeding my humic and fulvic acids to his pigs. So it goes through the digestive system of the pigs, breaking down their fertilizer, making it more available, fortifying with micronutrients and humic acids, and then it goes into a compost tea with the addition of mushrooms, humic acid and fulvic acid, and that's what he uses to apply to his entire farm. And he does it in gigantic compost tea bins that are the size of like pools.
Our guts, they need humates. It's the primordial starter of life.
Mm-hmm. And if you can, what makes seabird guano so awesome? That's fish fertilizer that's recycled through a bird. They took all the bad stuff out. It comes out. It's got tons of calcium. The heavy metals are reduced by a ton. I love seabird guano when it's collected responsibly. Yeah,
I like seabird guano. I use it too.
Same with guanos, but the problem with guanos, just like a lot of humate products, is the fact that guanos are a mined product, so they have to do some destruction to get that. Fortunately, for the products that we use for making our humic acids are byproducts of the mining industry. So if I'm not using them to make humic acid, they're going into the garbage or they're going into a tailings pond. So I'd much rather see them used for something beneficial than not.
Right.
And we're able to help clean that stuff out of those places. But the great thing about humic and fulvic acids is there is no single source. I can make it from compost. I can make it from leonardite. I can make it from peat moss. And each one of those is going to be a slightly different compound. But depending on how it was exposed to whether natural or unnatural elements will dictate how good it is. So a lot of the humic acids that are made from peat, they're much higher in arsenic because of pollution. A lot of the leonardite made humic acids where they source their leonardite out of the southern United States. Those were brackish seas 100,000 years ago. So those got a lot of salt in them. So that's, again, not as good, not going to make as good of a product. But if you can get a good biodynamic compost going, that's one of the best ways of making a high quality fulvic acid. But this is very advanced composting. This is not your compost pile sitting in your backyard. This isn't even a worm bed. This is a far more complicated process that involves monitoring the pH, injecting air, rotating, using large equipment to move it at a very specific time at a very specific place. And we make humic and fulvic acids out of all of these processes. Just some of them we rely more on for different applications and different products. Most of our current products are made from leonardite right now. That's where we get most of our humic and fulvic acids from, because we've got a very, very clean, high quality source for it. But that's a mine source. Someday that source is going to go away. So we've got to stay on top of it. We got to either switch our source and be able to make as high a quality a product, or we got to find a new way of getting there. So we're already prepared with those before it happens. So if one becomes inefficient or we can't do it because of cost effectiveness, we've got a backup right here to produce the same product. A lot of the products problems when you're manufacturing organic stuff is you have to rely on wherever it comes from. And just because this mine produced 070 for the last 10 years, you just got to the bottom of it, it's not going to be the same every batch. You're talking about organic stuff. How could it be? How could that alfalfa meal be the same NPK this time as it was grown last year as it was the year before? It's going to be close to the same, but it's going to be a little different. That's why it's so important to where if you're on a large scale, you need to check your own stuff. You need to, if you're growing organically in Oregon, you need to check the heavy metals on your inputs. You need to talk to your soil manufacturers. You need to talk to your fertilizer reps. You need to make sure that stuff's not going to, there's no point in growing something if you're going to test hot for heavy metals. It's just a waste. Don't even start. You'd be better off using chemicals, and producing an inferior product that you can actually sell. You got to sell it for a lot less and you're competing a lot more, but it's still better than nothing. And that's what you're going to get if you're growing product irresponsibly using, crappy organic inputs or polluted inputs. This is why the cannabis industry has a lot of problem using certain fish fertilizers, but it's weird because there's a lot of good ones too. It depends on how old that fish is and how long it's been in the ocean. So if you're going to a fish byproduct from, let's say, tuna or halibut, those are in the ocean for years and years and years. So those are going to accumulate a lot of heavy metals. Same with crabs, same with lobster. But if you go with shrimp, now those got a much shorter life. If you go with a lingcod or sardines, these are little fish that are in the ocean much, much shorter times. And because of that, they're going to accumulate less heavy metals. It's going to produce a cleaner product, and you can still use that stuff. There's still good seaweeds out there that you can use, just not every one on the market. There's actually the one I've been using recently that I know will work in Oregon under our heavy metals is the one from Fox Farm. I think it's got a silly name like Kelp Me or something like that. But when you have it tested for heavy metals, it's they're below the threshold. They're NA. They don't show up there. You go try that with like MaxiCrop, or some of these other seaweeds that have been commonly on the market, and sometimes the arsenic and lead is off the charts. And you just, and people lean on these products too much. They use too much seaweed because their plants are unhappy because their environment isn't dialed in. So they constantly have to use stuff to reduce stress. If you've got a happy, healthy environment, you don't need to use that stuff as much. You're using it for an advantage, not to take care of a problem. And that's the issue with people have with a lot of biostimulants and the problems that they run into when they pull them out of their system. Like I see a lot of this trend in California where people are going strictly to inorganic blends and mineral salts because they think that that's going to work better for them. When actually it's going to be a lot worse. Their shelf life of their products is going to go down. They're not going to have as high quality. Their terpene profiles are going to go down. They're not going to have as high a THC. They're going to have a little bit less money that they're spending every month, but eventually that guy that grows better stuff is going to get their market. Because there's always going to be someone bigger out there to grow more and sell it, and cut their throat, sell it for a little bit less. Right now, cannabis is the only thing you can grow where you get rewarded for quality. You get no more money for a blue or blueberry or a red or apple. That was set by a commodities market in New York. That's not up to you. So that is what it is. So, if you're going to sell on a bulk scale and you're going to grow with salts, you're competing with the guys that grow 100 acres at a time, and they can sell it cheaper. They just can. Their model is $25 a pound, $80 a pound, and they can make money selling it at that. Most farms, this is one of the great things I learned working for BioAg over the years is I get to see what these farmers do and what their profit margins are. What does the guy growing peppers or hazelnuts or celery get per acre? So let's say you're growing something really expensive, something really high end, like boutique peppers. You're growing peppers for a fancy hot sauce. If you're doing the most top end, high end stuff out there, it's costing you about 12 grand to 15 grand to get everything set up and harvested for the year per acre. Out of that, your profit is about 25, maybe $1,500. That's and that's a great profit margin for agriculture. Spending 15 grand to make 2, that's fucking great. So you're telling that guy that he can take a 5x5 square, grow something that gets around 2 pounds. He can get around $200 a piece for each one of those pounds, and he can fit about anywhere from 400 big ones to 1,000 small ones on 1 acre. So that means he can take his 10,000 acres of vegetables, cut out about 20 to 50 acres, and that's going to produce more money than the whole rest of his garden. And he can just do that for fun. And that guy, his dad, he built the bank in the town. Their farm, the name of the road for that is the name of their family. So this is the Johnson's farm. They're on Johnson Road, and they helped build the U.S. Bank in town. So they've got a half a $1 million credit with them, and then they get a $500 million worth of ag loans every year through the government. And that's what's coming when federal legalizations happens. No one in cannabis is getting those federal loans. You don't know how to get them. You do not have the lawyers to go get them. You don't know how to fill out the paperwork. You don't know where to go in the government to go and do that. They already did it. They have done it every year for the last 80 years. That's what these big high-end guys are going to start running into. With these giant farms where they're producing these warehouses full of pot in places where you can grow outside. The outside guys are going to take over those markets. And how long is our country going to let these guys set up these giant indoor gardens sucking up electricity when we need that for other stuff like electrical vehicles and other stuff? We can barely light our infrastructure as it is. And if they're going to have to choose between electric cars and pot, which are you going to choose? You can't have gas anymore in California after, 10 years? That's all going to be electric. So that means either one of two things is going to happen. The electrical grid's got to get upgraded immensely, or we've got to be more efficient with our power. What are they going to cut first? The power that's going to the hospital or the one that's going to the pot grow? The pot grow is going to go. That's a vice. That's not a food. They'll let the guy grow strawberries. They'll let them grow lettuce, but pot, no. Then you can grow that outside. Go grow that outside. I can't see them letting people do that, again and again and again in these places where you can't naturally grow weed. And eventually what will happen, where do they grow bananas? Where do they grow strawberries? Where do they grow pineapples? That's where the best pot grows. Back in the day, Hawaii, the Caribbean, places like that, where they've got cheaper water, cheaper labor, Mexico, places like that. And these guys are going to see that. They're going to lease thousands of acres and they're going to grow lots of stuff and then they'll import it. It just depends on what's cheapest. But, that doesn't mean that it's all doom and gloom out there. People have to be more realistic about what they can make off their profit. Just because you can't get $3,000 a pound doesn't mean you can't get $500 to $1,200 a pound for good quality pot. And if you can't make money selling pot for that, I don't know what you're doing. That's plenty profit. That's great to make. But the thing that's bugging me right now is that I see all of these farmers struggling, but I don't see any cheaper pot at the dispensaries. I go to a dispensary once a week wherever the hell I go. California, Oklahoma, the East Coast, Maine, Chicago, Washington. I don't see any cheaper pot in the stores, but I see all these farmers struggling. Who the hell is getting his money? Why the hell is it so expensive at the store still?
It's getting taxed every step of the way.
Exactly, because they sold it to them on you can tax the shit out of this, because they thought they were supposed to get $3,000 a pound.
Yeah, it's taxed like 7 times before it gets to the consumer.
Exactly,
it's crazy.
And
they're outrageous taxes too. They're outrageous taxes. They're not like reasonable taxes. It's like outrageous. And then like the power bill or power companies can charge you more for growing cannabis, and water can charge you more. It's craziness. And landlords too. And the landlords do it too if you don't own your building or your property.
Yeah, they can absolutely raise your rates. Oh, you're growing pot. Oh, that's that's $2,500, not $1,000. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. And think that everyone's just made of money.
Exactly. And the regulation is another thing that's killing you. I had this discussion with one of the legislators in Salem one afternoon, and he's saying, "Oh, pot needs more regulation, not less." And I'm like, "Do you think they do that with anything else? Do you think that the guy who grows opium for the legal opiates that are produced in our country, Vicodin, morphine,
heavy metals?
Do you think they test for heavy metals? Do you think they have a little blue tag on every poppy plant and a freaking camera that's watching it from a guy at the state? No, there's a guy with a machine gun and he's got a freaking peacock, because that's the way they've grown opium for the last, however, in Turkey. And it's the same family that made the deal with Pfizer like 100 years ago. They have no regulation, where we're regulated to pieces. So that's going to have to change.
Same with tobacco, and they spray all sorts of gnarly chemicals on tobacco, and
and tobacco is a great example for our crop. What is a high quality a cigar? What's the difference between a 50-cent cigar and a $50 cigar? It's not where it was grown or who grew it. How long was it cured? Who rolled it? That's what matters. That's what makes it special. And a properly cured and a dried cigar, you can go buy a pre-Castro Cuban cigar in England right now at a tobacconist for I think about $20,000. Same one that Churchill smoked. And it's still good because it's been dried and cured properly, just like cannabis can be.
Grown organically in living soil, ideally.
Exactly. Grown proper. And it's more environmentally friendly. It doesn't leach as much pollution into our Think about all of the runoff coming from all of these chemical gardens that are using rock wool in a drain to waste system.
Right.
And they're telling these people to run 3-4 EC. And the runoff is 3,000, 3,500 parts per million. That's going right into the ground, right into the water, right out into the ocean, and it's fucking up everything. And it's something that is going to come to a head with our industry sooner than later. So that's something you're going to figure that out, or you're going to get rolled over by the regulation that comes at you. Because don't think they're not going to start testing those runoffs. They are. That is coming. And if you're using good living soil, that's going to stay in the dirt where it should. So it can slowly be absorbed.
I never have runoff.
Exactly.
Like the only time I have runoff is when I'm intentionally flushing it for like a sodium buildup or something for some reason.
Exactly. But
speaking of sodium, you had mentioned using high quality products that are low in sodium, and sodium is such a big issue in living soil growing. So do you have any processes to limit the sodium?
Yeah, I use 3 different way. I like to use at least 3 products that reduce salt in my living beds, and particularly with living soil in pots. That's the key to getting pots to work close to the effect that you get to beds. Beds are going to be superior, in my opinion, every time, but you can still get damn close with pots, especially in a large system. But the way you get there is you got to use. I like to use enzymes, silica, and bacteria. There's different types of bacteria that you can use for reducing salt buildup in your soil. You can use different types of silica to do that as well, and enzymes. So what I use in my little garden at home is I use SLF 100. I use BioSupersil, and I use another product called Spectrum DS. That's available from Tanio. And it's a large-scale ag product that's meant for desalinization of large ag fields. So you get one little bag that's about, I think it's 16 ounces, and it's supposed to do an acre. So
what
you
is
break
it called?
it down. It's called a Spectrum DS.
Cool. Thank you.
They used to sell a product. There used to be a product on the market that was similar to it called Pure. It was made by the people who did OGT. It was they went out of business some years ago, but it was another bacteria-based salt leaching solution. And works fantastic. It's a powder. You mix it with water. You water it on just before harvest. You make sure you water with plain water, and then you get a much improved smokable product at the end. Particularly when you're using beds or you've just done a recent top dressing or tea closer to harvest when you needed to, but you didn't want to. But I find that using the silica and the enzymes on a regular basis throughout my cycle helps prevent the buildup from even getting there. Another product I like a lot that helps with it too is there's a wetting agent called Thermex. I think it's called Thermex 70 or something like that. It also helps with salt buildup, but it depends on your soil makeup whether you need a product like that. But I still try to use a good wetting agent in my soil, at least once every 2 weeks, 10 days or so.
Yeah, yucca. I like using yucca too.
Yeah. I'm going to break in for a second, guys. Josh, how much time do you have? Because we have 6 questions. Just want to make sure we get those in.
Let's go to them right now.
Okie dokie. Then we will start with Shadow Mech.
All right.
Calmino question for Josh. Can it be used into flower, early, late flower? Rate of delivery, nitrogen is my only concern.
Yes, it can be include into very late flowering without the ill effect of tasting the nitrogen. I do not recommend using anything with nitrogen within 14 to 18 days of harvest. But if you come in with Calmino a week or so before that, because again, I was explaining earlier how it's enzymatically digested. With most organic nitrogen, when it goes into the plant, it has to be broken down in a very complex method. Think of it like a foundry. So the nitrogen goes into the cell. It comes in as a rock. The rock has to become a steel. The steel has to become a tube. The tube has to become a bike. What the enzymatic digesting process of making the aminos does is it comes into the cell as a tube. So the plant doesn't have to use any energy to absorb it. So it's much more available, so you can use a lot less. And it's a much duller, you still get a nice green effect, but it's much, much harder to overuse that nitrogen. It's the most gentle nitrogen you'll ever work with that's organic. It's even easier to use than alfalfa meal, in my opinion. But again, you want to use it at lower doses later in flowering. But what I recommend with most Calamino, just like silica and most humic, is a little bit all the time. So don't use it at full strength. Use it at quarter or half strength. Anywhere from 2.5 to 7 mils per gallon, and make sure you use it at least once a week. Calcium, amino acids, silica, and humic. They will always make plants happy. You will never be sad using them on a regular basis. And the more you use them, the less you use. So if you want to use it 2-3 times a week, cut that down by much more. But Calmino I found to be absolutely integral in building healthier, stronger plants, and particularly with plants that are infected or in difficult places, like plants that are exposed to diseases, or plants that are in a large ag garden that have to compromise because you got 20 varieties in one room with 100 lights, and they're all getting fed the same stuff. This one, let's say a quarter of that room is long-standing sativas. Those are going to yellow way faster and way harder after the 4th week. And if you can supplement that with Calmino and a little bit of nitroamino, your plants are going to stay way greener, way longer, and those sativas are going to produce way higher yields and get much denser flowers than they could before in that living system.
Cool. Fantastic answer.
I like that analogy. That was pretty solid.
Thank you.
And Josh, you have any package sets?
I'm actually working on that right now. We're actually was discussing that with some people today, where we're looking at putting together basically a all-in-one kit that has everything you need to grow 4 to 6 plants for one cycle or one season. So it will have not only your organic NPK, but it'll have biostimulant pack. It'll also have organic IPM. And it'll all, I really don't know, packaging is going to, we're right at the beginning of it, but I'm hoping to get that all to a person for around $100-$150. So 4 plants, $150. Here you go. This will do your backyard. This will do your tent.
Right on.
Just pick a good high quality soil and set up a nice big bed.
There you go. So are you typically using P100s?
P100. What is P100s?
Never heard
that.
of
I'm not sure of. So Roller City, you're going to have to expand on that question.
Yes, sir. Yes, please inform us what P100s are.
Okay, now we'll go on to Gil while we're waiting there. Since compost tea is mainly comprised of bacteria and bacteria feeds fungi, would feeding teas would eventually lead to fungal growth?
Yes, compost teas help feed and stimulate fungal growth in your soil, but you gotta expose your soil to mycorrhizae to get that fungal growth. Also incorporating mushrooms into your mix helps a lot. Mushrooms are a great source of chitosan and an alternative to using ocean amendments that could be potentially high in heavy metals. My other favorite one is insect frass. Although you got to be careful how you source it, but that has been one of my absolute favorite organic additives and top dressings for us. I basically am able to eliminate almost all of my liquid NPK inputs by doing top dressings with insect frass, and adding a little bit more of my hot soil at the top at the end of my flowering cycle.
Okay. Now P100 is a respirator.
Oh, yes. For a mask. Yes, definitely. The one that I like to use is you get it at the paint store, and then you can order the filters for chemicals and for insecticides and pesticides. And that's the safest one to use. That's the one, if you go to get your pesticides handler card in Oregon, that's the one that they're going to show you how to use. And they'll make you shave your face. And then when you put it on, they'll take this stuff that smells like shit and they'll spray it right around you to make sure it's sealed. And if it's not, you are going to vomit. And that's how they teach you that it must be sealed. Because that shit will absolutely, when you get those pesticides handler cards, that is no joke. You're dealing with deadly poisons, and they must be handled with care, and you must learn how to do that. That's not something that's off the street can do that.
And this actually leads into her next question here. What type of PPE would you recommend mixing amendments, biology, etc.?
I'm sorry, I am unfamiliar with your abbreviation. What's PPE?
Protective equipment.
Protective equipment. Yeah. Absolutely. Get yourself good, high quality gloves. Make sure that you either have if you're brewing a compost tea or you're working in an environment where you've got a lot of this stuff around, there's something to be said about those nice face masks that you can get at any Home Depot or Lowe's, so it doesn't get splashed in your face. Most of the people that I see they're hurting themselves with the stuff is, oh shit, I dropped something, it splashed me in the face, and now I got guano tea in my fucking eye, and now I got pink eye. Or oh crap, I got it in a cut on my hand, and now I got a terrible infection. And I got to take antibiotics for 2 weeks. This stuff is a regular thing. So wearing good, high quality gloves that you either can clean, and then wearing a good, high quality work glove over that, it can be all the difference in the world between making yourself sick and not. Talk to taking pesticides handlers courses are available at any community college, just about everywhere in the world. Educate yourself. That is the best way to do it. How it is done is how it will be done. So talk to the guys who have to spray the worst stuff you can think of and ask them what they're using. What are they using to clean up hazmat? What are they using to clean up, the murder scene with all the blood splatter everywhere? It's probably something burly. I bet you they have to wear a suit and a mask. But it's better to be prepared than to be sorry. You don't want to do something now to find out later that you have to pay a terrible, terrible price. And there is no free ride. There is always a price to be paid when it comes to stuff like this. And better safe than sorry.
100%. So the next one, can you tell us about molybdenum? Molybdenum. And your multi product.
Yes. Frankly, a lot of it's not a micronutrient that's needed often, but it is one that is needed and is necessary. Surprisingly, with surprisingly different crops. But we find that the combination of those particular six different micronutrients work very, very well in generally reducing deficiency or identifying where the deficiency is coming from. So if you don't know and you need a quick fix, use the blend and just, you'll get it fixed right then and you get a quick fix. But, do your tissue culture, and then you get a specific result, and then you can use that specific micronutrient to adjust it. But it just using, again, we were talking a little bit about this before the show. A fertilizer program, I always analogize it to like those old stereos we had in the 80s. Either you got 3 knobs and you're constantly messing with them, or you got a million switches, and that's your micronutrients. Either you've got a blend that is set and you use it at different times to slightly change the wad, and that's why we got TM7 and Cyto Plus, or you've got all these different micronutrients, and you're adding a little molybdenum with a little calcium, with a little boron, with a little copper, and using those as your soil tests tell you. It doesn't have to be that difficult, guys. You don't have to do a SAP test every 2 weeks. It's a good thing to learn, and it's fun to do, but it's just not necessary most of the time. Most of the time, a little bit of TM7, a little bit of multi-amino will get you right where you need to be. And there's plenty of other good organic and inorganic micronutrient packs that can help you with those situations. But there are those unique situations, like with Oregon soil, where you need to supplement with boron more than other soils. But there are specific crops that are very boron sensitive. That could be the case with molybdenum as well, which is why they don't add it in with as much fertilizer. But one of the things that they do in the ag world, which is different than the cannabis world, is they buy those 2 products separately. You buy your N, your P, and your K, and then you buy a micronutrient pack or micronutrients. Whereas in our industry, they blend those together, and you get a 3-part hydroponic mix, or you get a single part with all your NPK and your micronutrients in one thing. To get that biology, to get that fit in a bottle, you have to compromise somewhere. And usually that compromise is in performance. You get better performance by breaking those up into separate pieces. But how difficult do you want to make baking the cake? You want to buy cake mix, or you want to buy flour and all the pieces? Both will get you to the same place. Know what you're buying. Read your bottles.
Exactly. Which kind of leads us in the next question. I don't know if you really want to say too much, but can you speak on Bokashi Earthworks fulvic and how it compares to BioAg? Is it made and qualified the same? Quantified.
Bokashi Earthwork. I am familiar here. Let me look that up. Give me just a second here.
That's Brandon Rust's company.
Oh yeah, yes. That's sorry. That's apples to avocados. That is exactly what I was speaking about. That is an NPK blend with micronutrients. It does have humic and fulvic acid in it, but I don't know what testing method he's not using. The Lamar test method, which is the recognized method for testing for humic and fulvic substances, because fulvic acid is tested. Fulvic acid means honey gold. The way we test fulvic acid in the industry is that there's a stream that they collect fulvic acid from in specific places of the world. And that fulvic acid is naturally produced in these streams. And then that is put in a spectrometer, and we compare that to make our fulvic acid. It's a color. That's what makes it. So if you have a black product, it can have fulvic acid in it, but it is not fulvic acid. That is a blend of different organic additives. It could work fantastic, but you could use full power with that product to make it work better. I guarantee that. There is no product that has enough fulvic acid in it to facilitate the effect you get from adding full power to it. You can probably use less. So you could probably take his product and use full power at half strength and get the full dose of fulvic that you would want to get you where you wanted to be. I'm not as familiar with his products, or how they're made. I know a little. I have seen that product in some stores and online. So I know about that one, and it seems pretty cool. I got nothing to complain about. I've never met anyone that's used it, but it is not a fulvic or humic acid. It is a blend of micronutrients, macronutrients, and humic and fulvics, which is you can't. That's comparing. You're comparing the car to the gas. This goes with it. This is a part that gets you there. This is the part that starts the engine. Not the engine. There's a lot of tests out there that have been used for testing humic and fulvic acids in these type of products, and there's ways of cheating. Like there's a lot of dry fulvic acid products that say like, oh, this is 70% fulvic acid. That's bullshit. It's 70% fulvic. They use a wood pulp, and that wood pulp tricks the test to make it go off the chart. But you're not going to see a 70% damn difference between using that and my stuff. That's 0.5% to 1% fulvic acid. In fact, you'll probably see a better result out of mine 9 times out of 10, because no one goes to the trouble to make fulvic acid like we do. We really do it differently than 90% of things out there. We don't do we do it organically in a non-chemical process, and we try to do that with all of our extractions. We much rather do it with microbiology or with enzymes than with chemicals. You just get a better product. That doesn't mean we don't use chemicals. We absolutely do. We absolutely use hydroxides for extracting some of our humic acid and some of our different stuff, because that's part of the process. But it just depends on where is it going. Is this for hazelnuts? Is this for apples? Is this for cannabis? Is this for an edible crop? Is this for tobacco? Is it for hydrangeas? Is it for mums? We cover all of those. There isn't a plant out there where you can't get a better result by incorporating good biostimulants. Whether you're trying to use less salt to grow a healthier plant in a traditional farm, or you're trying to use organic additives at their best, I'll help you do either one. I don't care what you want to do. I'm not here to judge how you garden. I would promote organic. I would absolutely recommend organic. But hey, man, if you're killing it with chemicals, I want to help you do that better. I want you to use less to get a higher quality.
And our last one is I would love to hear Josh extrapolate a bit more on making fungal dominant tea at the end of the show. So it's the end of the show.
All right. One of my favorites for making a fungal dominant tea is using at least 3 different sources of compost and doing a short brew. I'll use Ollie mountain fish compost. I'll use a really high quality worm casting, like one from Green Grow, or from Four Corners is another good one that I like. That's a real clean. And then I'll use another compost like what's the name of that awesome fish compost? I get it at Concentrates.
Fish brew?
Not Fish Brew. It's made in Oregon. The guy really goes out of his way. I'm gonna kick myself for not thinking of the name of that stuff, but it's a wonderful organic compost that's made in, I believe, in Oregon. I know it's made in the Northwest, but the guy really does biodynamic composting where he breaks it down for 2 years before he collects it. And it's another fish-based compost. I know they just started selling it at Concentrates in Milwaukee, Oregon. But I'll text Luna later so she can put up on Instagram what the name of that is, because it's going to drive me nuts that I can't remember it. But I'll have to ask my friend after the show. But I take those 3 different composts at around anywhere from a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup per gallon. And then I add those into my tea. If I'm doing a long brew tea, let's say 24 hours, then I'm going to add my fungal pack at the very end. Let's say anywhere from 2 to 12 hours before it's time to go. But if it's just going to be for fungal dominance, just I'm trying to stimulate fungus and get fungus down there, I'll brew it by itself in the water. Again, anywhere from as low as 4 to as much as maybe 8 hours. 6 hours I find to be kind of like the key that opens all doors. And then I'll add my favorite is TM7. That seems to stimulate more in a compost tea than just about anything, and a little bit of molasses. But if I got to choose between molasses and TM7 with micronutrients, I'm going to go with TM7 and micronutrients. You're going to see more out of it. It's going to be more long-term food for the microbes, so you'll see it live longer in your soil, and the benefits will last longer. Whereas with molasses, it's going to be real hot, but it's going to burn out quicker.
Right.
So but that actually it's moldable.
You mentioned TM7, and we did have another question come in.
Yes.
What is the last time you would apply TM7 in cannabis flower cycle?
Beginning of week 3.
Week 3?
Beginning of week 3. That's my, if I have to use it, that's my, I'd rather, really at that point, I'd rather use the multi-amino. But for your first 2 to 3 weeks of flowering, your micronutrients needs with cannabis and hemp go up nearly 3 to 4 times. And if you supplement that, you can prevent lots of early yellowing that you get with heavy flowering cannabis plants that people make up for with nitrogen, which again affects your flavor and adds more leaf and loosens up your flowers at the end, which you don't want. So you take a micronutrient pack like TM7 or Cyto Plus, and you use that, instead of using it once every 10 days, you use it, let's say 3 to 4 times in that first 10 days of bloom. And your plants will absolutely thrive. You'll hit a way harder fruit set, and you'll get a lot bigger fruits bulking a lot faster. Particularly outside. If you want to get your plants to harvest early, trigger them early.
Cool, fantastic. Luna, You've been sitting there beautiful, and Lily says she loves your beanie there. So think it over.
Oh, show's over, folks. Go home. I'm just kidding. Josh, thank you so
All
much for coming on.
Hey, thanks
I know
for
you gotta get going.
having me on and let me talk so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, and have a great time at MJ BizCon.
Thank you. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Okay, sounds
Okay,
good.
guys. And Josh
All right, guys.
is back on with us on the Soil Matters in December, so you'll have to watch for that one as well.
Oh yeah, I'm bringing my friend from Nate from Organic Matter Soil with me. We're going to talk, about his large facility. He went from a small-time medical cannabis farmer to a very large soil manufacturer, and in my opinion, produces the best commercially made soil for cannabis in the West Coast. I haven't seen anybody that beats it, outside of something that you make it in your home yourself.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Hear it.
It was great talking with you.
Okay,
Thanks.
guys, we're going to end the broadcast. See you later.